What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Nemo Propaganda here, and today we are going to do a little bit of a different video. Usually I just review products from top to bottom, do some comparisons and stuff like that, but right now I have three really popular speakers here that are around the same price, so I wanted to do a single three-way comparison to help those of you that might be in the market for one of these three speakers and you're maybe having a hard time making a decision. Now, if you're not in the market and you're just watching this video for entertainment purposes, nothing wrong with that too. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. I generally review speakers, subwoofers, and in those reviews, I compare them to other products in and around the same price to help give you context when making a buying decision. Now, for those of you that have been following me for a while, you know my last few videos had a little bit of grainy audio. I had a new mic, but it was like DOA or something. I got a new one, so sound should be cleaned up quite a bit. However, I did have some dental work done, so it's a little bit difficult to talk right now. And it's probably going to be like this for the next few weeks, so just bear with me. It is what it is. If I'm talking just a little bit muffled or with a little bit of a lisp, jaw is in a lot of pain right now. It is what it is. We're powering through it. It's no problem. So let's talk about what makes these speakers similar, and then we'll talk about what makes them different, and that'll be the whole video essentially, right? I'll also try to kind of give you a little bit of a buyer profile, like who I think each speaker is for, and hopefully that will help you make a decision if you're in the market again, like I said. So pricing, the KEF R3 Meta is about $2,200. The Buchardt S400 Mark II is going to be between $2,100 and $2,200 depending on the current exchange rate. And then the Dynaudio Evoke 20 is going to be the most expensive at $2,400. Now, I do feel like Dynaudio shot themselves in the foot just a little bit by pricing the speaker a couple of $100 higher than the competition. I understand that it's made in Denmark and that costs a little bit more to do. But I think in the around $2,000 per component category, right? Whether it was a $2,000 amplifier, $2,000 pair of speakers, $2,000 subwoofer, whatever, I think that customer base, because I'm part of that customer base, I think we somewhat care where something's made, but not enough to pay extra for it, if you know what I mean. So anyhow, I digress. Another thing these speakers all have in common is going to be really strong, powerful, confident bass. I would say a subwoofer is going to be optional for all three of these speakers. Now, you guys know I love strong, deep, powerful, impactful bass with a lot of extension, so I'm always using a subwoofer regardless of what kind of speakers I'm using. But these speakers are definitely going to be what I would consider the bass champions around this price and physical size, honestly, right? I could see a lot of people hearing the bass of the R3 Meta, the Buchardt S400 Mark II, or the Dynaudio Evoke 20 and saying it's plenty. Even when I reviewed these speakers, it seemed a lot of people were using them without a subwoofer, and some people were saying they were even having too much bass and were having to use their tone controls to dial it back. So rest assured, lots of bass, all three of them. But the way they present that bass to you is very different. Let's talk about that. The Dynaudio Evoke 20 is going to be the warmest of the bunch in its bass region. It's going to be all about rich tonal texture. It's going to have a lot of bloom to it. It's not going to be the quickest, tightest, or most articulate bass, but it is going to be tuneful and have a real nice warm tone and a lot of body to it. Now, if you're saying that's not the kind of bass you want, you like it tighter, more technical, more articulate, the KEF R3 Meta, that's what that does. Its bass is all about technical excellence. It's still gonna, have a lot of output and extension, but it's going to be about technical capability, good note-to-note distinction, handling of delicate passages, good transient response. It's going to be tight. It's going to have good start-stop behavior and things like that. Now, let's say you're like, okay, I mean, the KEF R3 Meta, that sounds really good, really technically capable. The Dynaudio Evoke 20's got a lot of flavor with all that warmth. Is there something in the middle? I don't want either one. Yes, the Buchardt S400 Mark II. The Buchardt S400 Mark II's bass is on the warmer side, but nowhere near as warm as the Evoke 20. It's much tighter. It's got better note-to-note distinction, better transients and such, but not to the point of the KEF R3 Meta. So I hope that makes it pretty clear. Let's talk about mid-range, because mid-range is another area where all three speakers are going to be fairly different. The Dynaudio Evoke 20, the warmth it had in its bass, no different. The mid-range is very, very warm as well. This is a very warm speaker, guys. So that mid-range is going to be, again, it's going to be more about tone, being tuneful. It's going to have bloom to it. Human voices are going to sound like there's a lot of weight behind them. Same with instruments and things like that. Now, the only problem there is going to be when a speaker gets this warm in and around this price, the mid-range is going to close off a little bit in terms of soundstage or air or separation. Now, let's say you heard everything I said and you're like, I don't want that. I want the total opposite. Boom. KEF R3 Meta, again, is going to be the total opposite. It's just a tiny bit warm, the KEF R3 Meta. Just warm enough to give you a little bit of tonal richness, but not too much. It's going to be much more open in the mid-range, going to have a much bigger sound stage in the mid-range, much better separation and a lot more air in the mid-range. Now, let's say you're like, okay, the Evoke 20 is like super warm. The KEF R3 Meta is just barely warm. Is there anything in the middle? You guessed it, the Buchardt S400 Mark II. It's nowhere near as warm as the Evoke 20, but it is warmer than the KEF R3 Meta. I would say the Buchardt S400 Mark II's mid-range is about as warm as it could get before it starts to close in on itself just a little bit the way the Evoke 20 does. Now, just to be clear, I'm not saying the Evoke 20 sounds congested and tight in the mid-range, but the other two speakers are quite a bit more open with more separation and air. So it is what it is. Moving up to the treble, again, all three speakers are going to be just a little bit different. The Dynaudio Evoke 20 continues its theme of being a warm speaker. You're going to have treble that's just on the dark side of neutral. On top of that, it's paired with a very smooth attack, so it's ultra easy on the ears. Those of you guys that like to do 4 and 5 hour listening sessions, or maybe your room's real lively and you need something very relaxed, but still, with good detail retrieval, that's what the Dynaudio Evoke 20 is going to do. Now, the KEF R3 Meta is going to be, I wouldn't say the total opposite, but very different. Instead of where the Evoke 20 is on the dark side of neutral, the KEF R3 Meta's treble quantity is going to be more neutral, right? It's not going to be bright, it's not going to be dark, it's neutral with its presentation, and its attack is not sharp, nor is it smooth. It's just good, neutral treble that is highly refined, quite a bit more than the Evoke 20. It's going to give you a good amount more detail and a whole lot more air and sparkle than the Evoke 20. The Buchardt S400 Mark II's treble is a little bit different as well. It's not on the dark side of neutral like the KEF R3 Meta. As far as treble quantity, it's mostly neutral. However, the main difference is the Buchardt S400's treble just has a little bit of sharpness to its leading edges, and that's something I really love about the speaker. It's neutral, maybe just a hair dark side of neutral, but with a little bit of sharpness to its resolution, and it's a really enjoyable sound. So that's how the three speakers are different. So let me give you a buyer profile for each one just to help you a little bit further. Then we're going to wrap up this video. So the Dynaudio Evoke 20 is going to be someone who likes a warm sound from top to bottom. You know what I mean? That's what you like. You like that tone, that richness, that weight, that body that a very warm speaker brings to the table. And hell, you might even believe a speaker can't be too warm. You might have plans to pair this speaker with an R2R DAC or a tube amplifier because you want as much warmth as possible out of your sound system. You're going to love the Evoke 20. The Buchardt S400 Mark II is someone who likes a little bit of warmth in their sound, not too much, but a good amount with good strong bass. A mid-range though that is going to be a little bit more expansive, and treble that might have just a little bit of attack to it, a little bit more lively, a little bit more excitement. Now the Buchardt S400 Mark II is not a bright speaker by any means. It's not going to be like a Klipsch experience here, guys. But it is going to give you quite a bit more detail and a little bit more sparkle and air than the Dynaudio Evoke 20. And then moving on to the KEF R3 Meta, it's going to sound just a little bit less warm than even the Buchardt S400 Mark II. So I guess you could say if this is about warmth, most warm, middle warm, least warm. So the KEF R3 Meta, wait, what am I doing here? I'm supposed to be giving you guys buyer profiles. I started doing comparisons again. Okay, I already told you the buyer profile for the first two. KEF R3 Meta's buyer profile is going to be someone that wants a speaker that's just a little bit warm. Just enough to have some tonal character to it. You like a treble region that is mostly neutral, highly refined, and very resolving. You like good, strong bass, but you like it to be tight and technical and accurate. You know what I mean? You want it to have good, strong output, but accuracy and tightness. That bass fidelity is very important to you. So that's the three speakers. Now, let me say a couple of other things real quick. I tried all three of these speakers with different amplifiers. I use amps like the Choco Ime, Kinky Studio, Pre-N Power amps, Hegel H190, Prima Luna Evo 100. What else did I use? Also RSL's little $100 IA255 amplifier. Very, very fantastic amplifier. And this is what I found. The Evoke 20 is going to stay warm no matter what you do. You can connect amplifiers to it that are all about an analytical sound, something like my Kinky Studio preamp and monoblock power amp setup. and it is not going to open up the speaker. It's not going to make it sound more lively at all. It's going to stay sounding thick, warm, and juicy. Moving on to the KEF R3 Meta. The KEF R3 Meta, if you connect it to an analytical amp, it's going to sound more analytical. If you connect it to a warmer amp, it's going to sound warmer. So that has a little bit more range as far as how it could sound depending on the rest of your connected equipment. The Buchardt S400 Mark II is more like the KEF R3 Meta, where again, it's going to depend on your connected equipment. But I don't think you're going to really be able to get the S400 Mark II to sound analytical per se, but you can get it to sound quite a bit more open or quite a bit more warm depending on your amplification style. I wouldn't call any of these speakers low volume champions. Typically, in my experience, speakers that have quite a bit of bass and are on the smaller side, like bookshelf speakers, generally are not going to be the best at lower volumes, especially when the sensitivity is just okay. Nothing wrong with that. These aren't terrible at low volumes, but if you listen at something like 65 dB, you might want something more like a Fritz Carbon 7 Mark II. Instead, that's going to be a speaker that has still very good bass, but it's a little bit bigger, quite a bit higher on the sensitivity as well, much easier to drive. Usually speakers that are very, very easy to drive and have a medium or low amount of bass, I found to be the low volume champions. Focal Aria 906 is another example of a low volume champion. So again, you're one of those 65 dB or less guys, I don't think any of these three speakers are going to be for you, unless maybe your amplifier has like a loudness button or you have some kind of setting for that. But I would say, 75 dB, these three speakers are all going to sound pretty good. Even 70 dB, it's, because it depends on your room size. You got like a really big room, 70 dB in a really big room could be, 75, 77 dB in a small room, right? Because you're sitting further away, most likely. Anyhow, I digress. I think I've told you everything I wanted to tell you about this three-way comparison. If you like this video, leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already. I did notice about half the people that watch my videos are subscribed. I appreciate that. For the other half, I don't know what's holding you back, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, this channel does have a free Discord. I'll leave a link at the bottom of the screen. Feel free to hop in that bad boy. If you've got any questions, you can ask in the YouTube comments below. But if your question is going to be more complicated or it's going to require a little bit of back and forth, I might encourage you to just hop in the free Discord instead. It's a lot easier for us to converse in there when there's a lot of back and forth. If I want to see pictures of your room, stuff like that. So, thank you for tuning in. Until next time, later.